Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. We are going in depth on the ballot questions in advance of the November 4th election. In this segment, we're talking about ballot question number 1, which is eliminating gas tax indexing. It is one of 4 questions on the ballot for voters across the Commonwealth. I'm here in the studio with John Wargin of Barnstable Village, who is very involved in this issue, and he will be speaking in favor of the ballot question. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Let's start with you telling the listeners about yourself and how you got involved in this issue.
Well, I became involved in the issue well over a year ago, and through my wife, who is the captain for the town of Barnstable, and Agatha Boswell, who's the captain for the Cape. We started these petitions, and during the late spring, early winter, and continued with the petitions. And then, to our dismay, the petitions were left to the Revenue Committee with the state legislative, and it sat on their desk for 4 weeks, which meant a pocket veto. At that particular juncture, we had to go back and get signatures again. And that was, we went back in May for additional signatures to get this particular question on the ballot.
And tell me about why you and your wife got so involved in this. How did that all start?
Well, we're on a fixed income. And like many other people on the Cape, indexing the gasoline tax is just a bit much. And we figured if this goes through, what's going to follow? Are they going to index property taxes? Are they going to index other means of revenue? So we became very concerned, and we just felt that the legislative should vote on these things on an annual basis instead of indexing them, which is totally a regressive tax.
And how did you folks first hear about this issue? How did it come to your attention?
Well, it came to our attention because we have been active in the Republican Party, and it has been an issue there. And that's how we really became involved with it, through the legislative branch, or the minorities within the legislative branch. And that's how we started on this particular quest. And
for people who don't really know anything about this issue, lay it out for us of what this ballot question would mean and what the other side of the point is, and why you folks disagree.
Well, currently we have a tax of 26.5% by the state on gasoline, and also 18.5% for the feds. Now, this is a fixed tax rate. The reason for this, to index based on inflation, or the CPI. They're going to use the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, for adjusting taxes based on the prior year. But there would be no deflation as far as this indexing is concerned. It'd be a constant increase with regard to this tax. And it's burdensome. Again, we go back to the Cape. The Cape, we have poor, middle class, we have the trade unions here, and we have the seniors. And just these additional tax dollars will mean a lot as far as budgeting is concerned. And as far as, even with this tax, the mode of transportation on the Cape, bringing food stock in and other commodities, is done by truck. Again, the costs have to be passed through, and it'll be passed through to the consumer. So I just feel that this is a regressive tax, and it's just hurting everybody involved.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. We're talking about ballot question number 1, eliminating the gas tax, which is one of the 4 questions that will be before voters at the November 4th election. I'm talking with John Wargin, who has been a local activist on this issue. He and his wife have been petitioning on behalf of this issue. And tell us again, John, of all the issues that you could get involved with, what was it about this one that made you and your wife feel so strongly?
Well, it was the indexing. And where can we go from there? I felt that we had to put a stop to that type of taxation.
And for those who say the money raised, I guess the people on the other side speak of the money raised from the gas tax helping to repair roads and bridges, and without that automatic increase, those repairs might not happen. What do you say to that?
Well, I think the Cape Cod Times, in their editorial about 2 weeks ago, did an excellent job on that particular thing. I think as far as the roads and bridges are concerned, the legislators should have the courage on an annual basis to raise these taxes. If needed, then they'll be answered to the constituency.
Now, the opponents of the question say that it will actually cost taxpayers more in the long run if the indexing doesn't happen because the raise won't happen. What do you say to that?
Well, I question that. And one of the things is that Massachusetts spends $675,000 on 1 mile of road highway maintenance, and the national average is $162. I mean, is this for roads and maintenance, or is it going to be for pensions?
And when they talk about that this is actually a public safety crisis, and if this passes, that there will be a public safety crisis in terms of roads and bridges, your response is that's not true. Is that right?
If it's a crisis, let's vote on it each year. Then we'll face the crisis head on. We'll be going maybe for federal funds, maybe get a hold of our congressional delegation and help us support this through the federal highway plan.
Now, who do you feel are the people lining up on either side of this issue? Do you see certain groups of people lining up on either side that distinguish themselves by political party and other things like that?
I think this issue is beyond political party. I think it's an issue for all people, especially here on the Cape, where, as I said, it does affect the seniors, especially the poor and the middle class and the trade groups.
Now, how have you been spreading the word about this? You talked about how you've been involved. Actually, before the show, you mentioned that your wife's been involved since the very beginning. Tell us about your involvement, your wife's involvement with this.
Well, my involvement has been at post offices going for signatures. I've gone to about 5-6 different post offices getting signatures. And just this last weekend, we're giving circulars out at the Cape Cod Mall to the motorists to bring their attention to this particular issue.
Now, who are the other people involved on the Cape? Do you have a committee of people helping to spread the word on this issue, and how does that work?
Well, as I said, Agatha Boswell, who lives in Sandwich, she's done an outstanding job in formalizing the committees on the Cape. And my wife, Terry, is also involved as far as the town of Barnstable is concerned. So, and it's not party affiliated. It's people that just are upset about this tax.
And why do you think the legislators want to do it this way? Why do you think that this came up in terms of the gas tax indexing?
Well, I hate to say this, but I think they're just cowards. I think they just don't want to face the issue each year, which they should.
In your opinion, this type of indexing, it really goes against democracy in one respect. Is that right?
Well, it's just an aggressive tax based on the CPI, and it'll never go down. It'll always go up. If there's a deflation during a particular period, it will not go down on that. It's just a continuous ladder.
And do you feel that this particular tax, the gas tax, affects some people in the community more than others?
Yes, I do. As I indicated before, it definitely affects the Cape as a whole.
And get into that a little bit more. Why do you think it affects the Cape more?
Well, because, one of the main occupations on the Cape is the trade unions. They have their trucks out there. They work every day. That's going to affect them. It's going to affect, as I said, when we move food and other commodities to the Cape, it's going to affect the pricing. And it'll be throughout Massachusetts, actually, but I think the Cape would be especially hit in this type of tax.
And what kind of reaction do you get from people when you talk to them about this issue?
Actually, the reaction for the most part is very positive. People, once it's explained to people are against this.
And how do those conversations come about? In other words, are most people familiar with this issue, or do you have to lay it all out to them?
In some cases, you have to lay it all out to them. I remember during the Father's Day, the assembly of cars there, when we had all the antique cars there, and we walked up and down the street passing out the petitions on it, we had to explain it to some people. And again, once it's explained, it's a very positive reaction.
And getting back into the roads and bridges, which they say is really the reason for this and the importance of the indexing, you felt there isn't really that public crisis with that. Let's drill into that a little bit more. Tell us how you think that money will be there for those repairs in the future if this is not passed.
Well, again, as I said before, I feel that this should be done on an annual basis. If there is a crisis, let's handle it on an annual basis. Are we getting sufficient monies from the federal government? Are our congressional delegation, are they pressing for additional highway funds? And I think a lot of these funds that are to be collected would end up within the pension funds of the people that worked for the highway department. And I just can't see this. I mean, if we're going to tax, let's do it on an annual basis, lay out the crisis, be specific about it, and then vote on it at that particular time.
Now, some people might not realize with this question, this whole issue goes back a couple of few years, doesn't it, in terms of when people started trying to gather signatures from this and so forth. Do you know the history of that? Do you go back that far on the issue?
Well, we go out when it started here on the Cape here. We go back to that issue, and it's an indexing. I just feel it's just the wrong way to approach this subject.
And how long did it take for people to gather the signatures to get this on the ballot? Do you know about that?
Well, what I did, I told you this before, that we worked on it for just about 7 months, and at that time, the Committee on Revenue at the State House sat on this bill for 4 weeks, and it became a pocket veto. So again, we had to go back out and petition additional signatures to get this on the ballot.
And how many signatures did you have to get this on the ballot?
Well, on the second time around, I believe we had to get 20,000.
And how tough was that to do?
Actually, it was just getting the people to do it. It really wasn't that tough because, as I say, the masses, as far as the Cape is concerned, they appeared to be against it. And so we really didn't have a problem getting the signatures. It's just a question of getting people out there to get the signatures.
And unfortunately, we have only about a minute left. Any final words you'd like to say on this issue, John?
Well, as I say, I feel that the legislative body should have the courage to approach this each year rather than index the CPI to an increase as far as tax is concerned, and I'd certainly recommend that everybody vote yes on question 1.
I've been talking to John Wargin of Barnstable Village about ballot question number 1, which would eliminate gas tax indexing. John, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Laura, thank you.
For more on the ballot questions and for interviews with local candidates in contested races on the Cape for the upcoming November 4th election, go to our website, capecod.com, and click on the election banner. I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.